Once again, welcome to Ask Chuck webcast. Every week we're in session, about 40 weeks out of the year. I try to answer a few questions through webcast. I thank you very much for sending in questions by Twitter, email, or Facebook. Please continue to do that, and I'm glad to answer all your questions. But for the purpose of the Ask Chuck webcast, I pick out a couple questions to respond to, so I'll go immediately to them. Brian from Boone emails, while as we learned with the Great Depression and the current economic situation, some regulation is needed, what are your thoughts on the current economic stranglehold that Washington has presented to small business owners? Well, first of all, I suggest that regulations that are on the books probably have worked their way into the economy and accepted, but there's a rash of new regulations coming out under this administration. This year alone, there's about 66,000 pages of new regulations. Well, no small business person could keep track of all of those regulations. It's quite a damper on the economy. This administration has one wet blanket on the economy, keeping a small business from creating jobs. So there's two or three things that I would suggest that we do this Congress to stop these regulations. First of all, in a blanket way, I would have a 2-year moratorium on any new regulations. Short of not getting a 2-year moratorium on any new regulations, I would suggest that, like something that's coming up on the agenda this week, the Congress can review regulations, and if we disapprove of them, they won't go into effect. So we have a couple regulations up this week that hopefully I think I'll be voting to disapprove as an example. And these tend to be fairly costly regulations as well. A second thing would be, if a regulation can't be disapproved and it goes into effect, we can put riders on appropriation bills that would say that none of the money in this appropriation bill can be used to enforce regulation such and such. Those are two things that we can immediately do. Of course, in the long term, what we ought to do is Congress not delegate so much authority to write regulations to the executive branch of government in the first place. Thank you very much, Brian. Now let's go to the next question. Facebook, Nina from Council Bluffs asks, how are foster kids going to access health care insurance programs? They can't be on the parents' insurance plan because they have no parents. They're thrown out of the children's health insurance program at age 18. This puts many kids who need mental health medications out there without meds. What do you propose for these young adults? Well, a forum that Senator Landrieu and I set up called the Foster Youth Caucus is a forum for discussing these very issues. A product of some of our talks was the Connect legislation that got passed in 2008 that is supposed to help people transitioning from age 18 to 21 out of the foster care system. States have the option of leaving people in foster care and giving them some help through Medicaid as long as they're either in school, going to college, or in a workplace environment where they're learning a trade for the future, or that they're just not capable of doing anything. It would be possible for people to be on Medicaid for that period of time from 18 through 21. We're looking at other things that help foster care in working out of foster care and aging out of foster care. I would hope that we would have some other suggestions to make that transition easier. I thank Brian and Nina for your questions today. People that didn't get their questions answered will answer in mail. This week, we're going to take up those regulations previously referred to for congressional veto. We're going to take up an appropriation bill later on this week. And then finally, the 3% withholding for contractors doing business with the federal government. We hope to get these legislation passed yet this week. I invite you next week by Twitter or email or Facebook to send in additional questions. Thank you very much for participating.